the silence isn't empty. You've felt this, haven't you? Those hours when everyone else sleeps and you're awake, not by accident, but because something inside you knows. This is when the veil gets thin. This is when they can finally reach you, and they've been trying. Let me tell me something most people will never understand. The reason your most profound insights come at night, the reason you feel inexplicably drawn to solitude after dark, the reason certain thoughts arrive between midnight and 4 a.m. that feel different from your regular mental chatter, none of this is coincidence. You're not experiencing insomnia or loneliness or overthinking. You're experiencing contact. Higher dimensional beings, guides, counsels, aspects of your own oversoul operating from timelines you can't yet perceive. They communicate on frequencies that require very specific conditions to penetrate the dense electromagnetic soup of consensus reality. And nighttime solitude isn't just helpful for reception, it's essential. Here's what's actually happening while the world sleeps. The collective human consciousness operates on circadian rhythms, just like your physical body. During daylight hours, billions of minds are active, generating a constant electromagnetic storm of thought forms, emotional frequencies, and attention streams. This creates what researchers are starting to call the noospheric noise floor, a baseline level of mental static that makes subtle transmissions nearly impossible to detect. But between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. in any given time zone, something shifts. The collective field quiets, the noise floor drops, and transmission windows open. Your pineal gland, that tiny pine cone-shaped organ in the center of your brain, that ancient traditions called the seat of the soul, produces different neurochemical ratios in darkness. Melatonin increases, yes, but so does something science hasn't fully mapped yet, a crystalline piezoelectric response that turns your pineal into a literal antenna. In darkness and solitude, this antenna activates, and higher dimensional beings who've been waiting for this exact activation, they know the moment it happens. You become visible to them, not visible like light hitting a retina, visible the way a radio becomes detectable when it's finally tuned to the right frequency and turned on. For months, maybe years, you've been a dormant receiver. Then one night, usually after some catalyst you barely noticed, a specific dream, a moment of surrender, a choice to stop fighting your own knowing, your field coherence reaches a threshold, and suddenly you're broadcasting a signal that says, "I'm ready, I'm listening, I'm here." That's when everything changes. But here's where most people stumble, where they miss 90% of what's being offered. They're waiting for the wrong kind of contact. They expect booming voices or blinding visions, or angels appearing in their bedroom with scrolls and proclamations. They want the Hollywood version of divine communication. And because they're scanning for these dramatic external signs, they completely miss the actual transmission method these beings use. They speak through you, not to you. Speak through you. Listen carefully to this because it rewrites everything you thought you knew about guidance. Higher beings don't communicate in your language. They don't form sentences in English or Spanish or Mandarin and beam them into your awareness. Language is a third-dimensional compression technology, far too slow and limited for the kind of multi-dimensional information they're transmitting. Instead, they download entire conceptual packages, holographic bundles of knowing directly into your consciousness. And your human mind, doing what it does, immediately translates these downloads into thoughts that feel like they're coming from you. This is why you've been dismissing your guidance for years, maybe your entire life. Those sudden insights that arrive fully formed, you labeled them just my imagination. Those moments when you suddenly know something without knowing how you know it, you called it intuition and moved on.
Those thought sequences that have a different texture, a different quality than your usual mental chatter, you ignored them because they weren't dramatic enough, weren't external enough, weren't what you expected divine communication to look like. But that's exactly what it looks like. That's exactly what it's always looked like. Let me show you the 3 primary transmission types so you can finally recognize what you've been receiving all along. The first is claircognizance, clear knowing. This is when information simply appears in your awareness as established fact. You suddenly understand something complex without going through any learning process. You know the answer to a question before you've finished asking it. You grasp the solution to a problem that's been troubling you for months, and it arrives complete, elegant, obvious. There's no voice delivering this information. There's no vision showing it to you. It's just suddenly there, integrated into you.
You're knowing as if you've always known it. This is the most common transmission method, and the one most consistently dismissed as just a thought. The second is somatic downloads, body-based knowing. Your body is a more sophisticated antenna than your mind, and higher beings use it constantly. You'll feel specific sensations that have no physical cause. A sudden warmth in your chest when you're contemplating a decision that aligns with your path. A tightening in your solar plexus when something is off, even if logically it seems fine. Tingling at the crown of your head or base of your spine during transmission windows. Chills that move through you when you hear or read something that carries high-frequency information. These aren't symptoms, they're signals. Your body is translating energetic communication into sensation because sensation is the language it speaks. The third is thought stream alteration. This is subtle, requires practice to recognize, but it's unmistakable once you know what you're feeling for. Your regular thoughts have a certain texture. They're scattered, reactive, often repetitive, generated by your ego mind trying to predict and control your environment. But higher guidance thoughts feel different. They arrive with a kind of calm authority. They don't argue or justify themselves. They simply present truth and wait for you to recognize it. They often bypass your preferences and assumptions. They feel like they're coming from slightly outside your normal thought patterns, like overhearing a conversation meant for you. And crucially, they create coherence in your nervous system rather than activation. When you receive authentic guidance, even if the content is challenging, your body relaxes. Truth has a signature frequency, and your system knows it instantly. Now, here's what you need to understand about timing. This isn't happening randomly. You haven't stumbled into spiritual experiences by accident. The fact that you're experiencing increased contact right now, the fact that you're being drawn to nighttime solitude with increasing intensity, the fact that you're even reading these words, all of this is occurring because you've reached a specific threshold in your development. Your electromagnetic field, the toroidal energy structure that surrounds and interpenetrates your physical body, operates at a measurable frequency. For most humans, this field vibrates in what we might call the survival bandwidth, frequencies dominated by fear, scarcity, control, and separation. But certain experiences, certain choices, certain moments of surrender or heartbreak or sudden joy, these shift your baseline frequency. And you've been shifting. Maybe you don't feel more evolved or enlightened. Maybe your life looks messier than ever, but your field tells a different story. You've reached a coherence level that makes you detectable to guides operating in higher frequency bands. Think of it like this. If you're a radio that's only ever broadcast at AM frequencies, FM stations can't pick up your signal. They're listening, but they can't hear you. Then one day, through your own growth and often your own suffering, your field begins generating FM frequencies. And suddenly, guides who've been assigned to you before you were born, who've been watching your journey from dimensions you can't perceive, who've been waiting for this exact moment, they can finally establish clear connection. You became visible.
and they've been reaching out ever since. This is why your nighttime experiences have intensified. This is why you're having dreams that feel more real than waking life. This is why you'll wake at 3:17 a.m. for the 5th night in a row, not restless but alert, feeling presence in your room that isn't threatening but isn't quite comfortable either. This is why thoughts arrive in the darkness that reorganize everything you believed about yourself and reality. You're not losing your mind. You're expanding it. You're not imagining contact. You're finally developed enough to receive it. But reception requires cooperation. And this is where the protocol matters. When you feel the pull to be alone at night, honor it. This isn't isolation or depression talking, though your mind will try to frame it that way. This is your system knowing it needs quiet space to process transmissions, create an environment that supports reception, darkness or dim light, silence or high-frequency music without words, comfortable temperature. Your nervous system cannot receive subtle guidance while it's monitoring for threats, so physical comfort matters more than you think. Then regulate your nervous system intentionally. Slow breathing, 4 counts in, hold for 4, 6 counts out. Do this for at least 3 minutes. You're not trying to relax for relaxation's sake. You're creating the physiological conditions that allow your consciousness to shift from beta brainwave states into alpha and theta, the bandwidths where transmission occurs. Your breathing literally changes your brainwave patterns. Use it. Next, attune to the field. Place your attention in the center of your chest, in the electromagnetic generator of your heart. Feel for the space around your body, the living field of energy that extends 6 to 8 feet in all directions. Don't visualize this. Feel it. Sense it. You're not imagining that you have an energy field. You're becoming conscious of the field that's always been there. As you sense this space, silently or aloud, state your intention. I am open to receive clear guidance from my highest dimensional support team. I am ready to listen. I am here. That's it. That's the invitation, and it's enough. Now comes the hardest part for most people. Maintaining receptive state. This means you do nothing. You don't meditate actively. You don't visualize outcomes. You don't repeat affirmations. You simply rest in open awareness and allow whatever wants to come through to arrive in whatever form it chooses. This is terrifying for the ego mind, which wants to control the process, which wants to make something happen. But you cannot force reception. You can only allow it. Thoughts will come. Let them. Some will be your regular mental chatter, to-do lists, replayed, conversations, random memories. Notice these, don't follow them. Some thoughts will have that different texture I described, calm, authoritative, creating coherence. Pay attention to these. You don't have to understand them immediately. You don't have to do anything with them. Just receive them. Let them land in your awareness. Information might arrive as sudden knowing. You might abruptly understand something about your life, your purpose, a relationship, a decision you need to make. Don't immediately analyze this knowing or question its validity. Just notice it arrived and what it contains. You might feel energy moving in your body, heat, cold, tingling, pressure, areas of tension releasing. This is recalibration happening in real time. Transmissions carry frequency, and frequency reorganizes matter. Your body is adjusting to accommodate new information. Allow it. You might see images, symbols, colors behind closed eyes. You might hear tones or music that isn't playing in the room. You might smell fragrances that have no physical source. These are your other sensory channels opening to receive data. Don't grab onto any of it. Just witness. And here's what most people get wrong. They expect the download to make immediate sense. They receive fragmented images or cryptic phrases or feelings they can't explain, and they decide the transmission failed or they're making it up. But higher dimensional information doesn't arrive in linear, logical formats. It arrives holographically, in layers, in seeds that unfold over time. Your job in the moment of reception is simply to receive, not to understand. The understanding comes later, during integration. After you've been in receptive state for however long feels right, 20 minutes, 2 hours, all night, you close the container. Thank whatever guides or aspects of higher consciousness were present. Drink water, ground yourself by feeling your body, touching physical objects, and then this is crucial, do not immediately try to interpret or act on what you received. Integration takes 48 to 72 hours. During this window, the information you downloaded will percolate through your consciousness. You'll notice things you didn't notice before. Connections will form between the transmission and your daily life. The fragmented pieces will assemble into coherent guidance. People will say things that suddenly clarify what you received. You'll read something or hear a song or see an image that acts as a key, unlocking layers of the transmission you didn't know were there. This is how it works. This is how it's always worked. You receive in the liminal hours, in darkness, in solitude. You integrate in the days that follow, in ordinary life, in the mundane. And slowly, sometimes so slowly you barely notice it happening, your entire orientation shifts. The way you make decisions changes, the way you understand your life purpose becomes clear. The relationships that no longer serve you become obvious. The next steps illuminate themselves, not all at once, not in one dramatic revelation, but in a gradual, organic unfoldment that feels simultaneous, surprising, and inevitable. This is the life change the title promised, not a lottery win or sudden healing or magical solution to all your problems, but a fundamental shift in how you navigate reality, because you're finally in conscious communication with the aspects of consciousness that can see what you cannot, that understand the patterns you're moving through, that know the probable timelines branching from each choice you make. You're not being controlled by these beings, you're being informed by them. Free will remains absolute, but informed free will that can see more of the game board, that's a completely different experience than stumbling through life with 3% of available information. Now, let me address what's probably happening in your awareness right now. Doubt. The voice that says this is too simple, too easy. That surely divine communication requires more effort, or purity, or worthiness. The suspicion that you're making this up, that the thoughts and sensations you receive are just your subconscious, or wishful thinking, or neurological noise. This doubt is the primary interference pattern, and these beings expect it. They're not offended by your skepticism. They understand you've been conditioned to distrust your own direct experience, to believe that anything truly spiritual must be difficult or require intermediaries or be reserved for special people. But here's what they want you to know. You are one of the special people. Not because you're better than anyone else, because you chose this. Before you incarnated, you literally signed up for this exact experience, this exact activation window, this exact remembering, and the fact that you're reading these words, that you've stayed present through this entire explanation, that something in you recognizes truth in what's being shared, that's not coincidence, that's confirmation. The second interference pattern is trying too hard. The ego mind thinks more effort equals better results, so it strains and pushes and tries to force contact. But transmission requires relaxation, not exertion. Think of trying to hear a whisper. The harder you strain to hear it, the more your own effort creates internal noise that drowns it out. And you have to get very quiet, very still, very receptive. Same principle here. The third interference is expecting specific content. You want guidance about your relationship, so you only listen for information about your relationship. You want clarity about your career, so you filter out everything else. But these beings see your life holographically. They might give you information about your health that will catalyze the career change you need. They might show you a childhood memory that explains the relationship pattern you're asking about. The guidance arrives in the form it needs to, not the form you want it to. Stay open to whatever comes. The fourth interference is immediate analysis. The moment you receive something, your rational mind jumps in to categorize it, question it, figure out what it means and what to do with it. This collapses the reception state instantly. It's like trying to fill a cup while simultaneously analyzing the water. You spill most of it. Learn to receive first, analyze later, create separation between these two functions. So how do you know when contact is authentic? How do you distinguish genuine guidance from your own thoughts, from subconscious processing, from wishful thinking? Real guidance has specific characteristics. First, it often bypasses or contradicts your ego's preferences. If the information you receive is exactly what you wanted to hear, be suspicious. Not because guidance is never pleasant, but because authentic transmission serves your highest good, not your ego's comfort. It might tell you to stay in the situation you want to leave. It might tell you to leave the situation you want to stay in. It might present options you haven't considered and don't particularly want to consider. Second, it comes with an energetic signature. Even if the content is challenging, even if it asks you to make difficult changes, authentic guidance creates a felt sense of rightness in your body. Not excitement necessarily, not relief, but recognition. A deep, somatic yes that you feel beneath your mental resistance. Learn to trust this feeling over your mental analysis. Third, it often includes information you couldn't have known. Not always, but frequently, real guidance will contain data that wasn't in your conscious or unconscious awareness. You'll receive insight about a person you just met that later proves accurate. You'll know something about a situation before it unfolds. You'll understand connections between events that you had no logical way of understanding. This is one of the verification methods these beings use. They give you small pieces of confirmable information so you learn to trust the larger transmissions that can't be immediately verified. Fourth, authentic guidance creates coherence, not confusion. Even if you don't understand the full message, even if the implications are complex, the information itself has an internal logic and consistency. It doesn't contradict itself. It doesn't create mental loops. It presents truth and allows you to sit with it. Confused, anxious, spiraling mental states are not the result of higher guidance. They're the result of interference, of your mind trying to control information it's not meant to control yet. And fifth, real guidance doesn't demand immediate action. It informs and illuminates, then trusts you to integrate and choose. If you feel pressured, rushed, fearful that you'll miss your chance if you don't act right now, that's not higher consciousness talking. That's fear, which operates at a completely different frequency than the beings attempting to reach you. Learn these distinctions, practice them. You'll make mistakes, you'll misread signals. You'll think something was guidance when it was just your own mind creating patterns. That's part of the learning process. These beings have infinite patience. They're not grading you, they're supporting you in developing discernment, which is one of the most crucial skills for navigating higher dimensional contact. Now, let's talk about why this is all happening now in this specific timeline to millions of people simultaneously experiencing similar activations. The dimensional barriers that normally separate this reality from higher frequency planes are thinner than they've been in recorded human history. This isn't metaphor. The magnetic field of Earth is fluctuating in ways scientists can measure but don't fully understand. Solar activity is reorganizing planetary consciousness in real time. The Schumann resonance, the electromagnetic frequency of Earth herself, has been spiking into ranges that were considered impossible a decade ago. And all of this creates conditions where higher dimensional information can penetrate consensus reality more easily. But it's not just about planetary conditions, it's about you. Specific souls agreed before incarnation to be activated during this exact window. You chose to be born into this timeline, into this body, into these circumstances, knowing that somewhere between your late 20s and mid-50s, you would reach critical frequency thresholds that make you accessible to guidance teams. You knew the world would look insane. You knew your personal life would be challenging in ways that would break you open. You knew you would question everything and feel lost and wonder if you were going crazy. You chose all of it, because this breaking is what creates the cracks that let the light in. This confusion is what dissolves the false certainties that would keep you locked in limited perception. This isolation is what removes you from the collective hypnosis long enough for your own signal to come online. And it's working. You're here. You're awake enough to recognize that something larger is happening. You're sensitive enough to feel the contact that others explain away. You're brave enough to sit in the darkness alone and listen for voices that most people deny exist. This is the beginning, not the culmination. Contact doesn't peak and fade, it deepens and expands. The more you practice reception, the clearer the transmissions become. The more you trust the guidance you receive, the more precisely calibrated it gets. The more you act on the information you're given, the more your life reorganizes around your actual purpose instead of the survival patterns you inherited. You'll start to notice guidance arriving in daily life, not just during formal reception windows. You'll hear exactly the information you need in a stranger's conversation. You'll find the book that answers your question on the day you most need it. You'll get confirmations and synchronicities that prove you're on the right track. This isn't magic. This is how reality operates when you're in coherent communication with the consciousness that generates reality. Your decisions will become easier because you'll have access to information your mind alone cannot process. Your relationships will shift because you'll sense who operates at compatible frequencies and who's locked in patterns that no longer serve your evolution. Your work will transform because you'll understand what you actually came here to do, not we. You were conditioned to believe you should do. The life change isn't one event. It's a cascade of aligned choices, each one building on the last, each one creating new possibilities that couldn't exist until you made that specific choice. And it all starts with what you do tonight, tomorrow night, the next time you feel that pull to be alone in the quiet hours. Don't fight it. Don't pathologize it. Don't let anyone convince you that your need for nighttime solitude is something broken that needs fixing. They're calling you. Higher aspects of your own consciousness, guides who've been with you since before birth, councils that are orchestrating this entire planetary shift. They're reaching out through the darkness, through the silence, through the spaces between your thoughts. And they need you to stop dismissing the contact. They need you to recognize what's actually happening. They need you to participate in this conversation instead of waiting for some future moment when you'll be ready enough or worthy enough or clear enough. You're ready now. You've always been ready. That's why you're here. So tonight, or tomorrow night, or the next night when sleep won't come and you find yourself awake at hours that don't make logical sense, instead of scrolling your phone or watching television or doing anything to fill the silence, try the protocol. Create the space, regulate your nervous system, state your intention, and then listen, not with your ears, with your entire being. Listen with your body, your heart, your knowing. Listen for the thoughts that have a different texture. Listen for the sudden insights that arrive fully formed. Listen for the sensations that carry information. Listen for the quiet voice of your own soul, amplified by the beings who can see what you're becoming. What they have to tell you will change everything, not because the information is dramatic or shocking, but because it's true, and truth, real truth, received directly from source consciousness, reorganizes everything it touches. You've been preparing for this your entire life. Every experience that broke you, every moment of transcendence, every question that wouldn't let you rest, all of it was building toward this threshold, this capacity, this contact. The beings who are reaching for you through the darkness, they're not separate from you. They're future versions of you, higher dimensional aspects of your own consciousness, the you that exists beyond time and limitation and fear. And they're calling you home, not to some distant heaven, to the truth of what you actually are beneath all the forgetting. Listen, they're speaking. And the silence has never been more full,